Hello. Hi, Daryl. Thanks for joining the live. How are you doing today? I'm doing good. Doing good. Thank you for asking. Hello, TTV. Thanks for joining the live. Hi, Iwan. Thank you all for joining. Hi, Damuth. Hi, DF. Is it Pratik? Hi. Hi, Corey. Where I'm from? I'm in Colorado. Okay. TTV, you brought your friend? Okay. Hi, Malik. Is it Malik or Malik? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. America, yes. Okay. Thank you, Corey, for bringing. You said your mom is here? Okay. Well, tell your mom hello. Hi, Kowski. Hi, Damon. Okay. Oh, I think I'm about, Daryl, I'm about 5'5". I'm not tall at all. Is it Pratik? Pratik? I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name. Hello. Hello, Ron. Thank you. Oh, Norway? I've never I don't know. I've never thought about Norway. Tell her I say hello, Corey. No, I'm not tall, Daryl. I'm not tall at all. I think I'm about 5. I think I've shrunk a little. I think I'm 5'5" now. Hey, is it Lakin? Hi, Missy. Hello, P. Is it Makundara? I'm doing good. How are you doing? Thank you all for joining. Hope you all are having a great Sunday. I'm doing good. Is it Ollie or All? I'm doing good. How are you doing? God bless you too. Hi, Michael. Thank you for joining. My age, I'm 51. I probably look 61. I've been through a lot. Thank you all for joining. Well, someone told me yesterday, she said I look like I was in my 20s, but no, I'm 51. Hi, Michael. Thank you. It's a good thing I don't look like what I've been through, you know? Hello, Gamer Kid. Hi. I pray we all believe in Jesus here. Yes, I pray we do. What the stream is about, it's about forgiveness. It's about forgiving someone who has wronged you. Hi, Faison. How are you? I'm doing good. You're from Pakistan? Okay, thank you for joining. Where am I from? I'm from Colorado. Thank you, Evie. I appreciate the compliment. Hello, Pog Whisperer. Thanks for joining. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Hi Evie, thank you. Thanks, Sky. Hi Juan. Mr. Incredible, the live is about forgiving others. So thank you all for joining. And I just ask that if you're on here making derogatory comments, please leave, okay? Because this channel is about Jesus. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I want to read first Matthew, the book of Matthew, and it's the 18th chapter, and it's verse 21 and 22. So it reads, "Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, 'Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother when he sins against me? Up to 7 times?' Jesus answered, 'I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times.'" So that was Matthew, the 18th chapter, verses 21 and 22. So I wanted to hop on here. I try not to be on here too long, but I wanted to talk about forgiving them. You know, at one point in time, we all have people who have wronged us. They've done mean, nasty stuff to us, and, you know, they go on about their business, and, you know, they act as though nothing ever happened. God sees everything, so, you know, they didn't get away with anything. It's just the fact that they thought they did. So they're under, a delusion there because they didn't get away with it. But I just wanted to talk about this today, and I'm looking down because I'm looking at my notes. But have you had someone in your life that has wronged you, abused you, or stolen from you? And I think we all can attest to that, because I know all 3 of those things have happened to me. But you got to forgive them. You know, just as God forgives us, we got to forgive them. You know, if you're planning to go to heaven, you got to forgive them. You know, I watch a lot of, I haven't watched it lately, but me and my late husband, we used to watch ID a lot. And so, not for the killing part, it was because I wanted to see what led to that. And then a lot of times, after the person was, their life was taken or whatever, then the family of the lost loved one would say, "I just can't forgive that person for doing that. I just can't forgive them." But the truth of the matter is, you have to, unless you're planning to go to hell, you got to forgive them. You have to. I know it's hard. That's never happened to me, but I've lost family members. So, one in particular, to it was a murder, but he got away with it. But anyway, that's another video. But what I'm saying is that we got to forgive them. We can't hold that in our heart against that person. God is going to take care of them, but we have to forgive them and keep it moving. So again, it's not for you to say that you just can't do it. You got to say, I'm going to do my, we got to ask the Lord to help us, because we really honestly can't do it by ourselves. But if we ask him, he'll help us. He really will. And so people have talked, people have talked bad about you. They talk bad about me. I've had people lie on me. People will turn what you tell them into a whole big lie. And, they'll go spread it around to everybody. And, you got people, who willing to listen to it. They're not trying to find out the truth. They don't want to know the truth. All they want to do is hear some juicy gossip. Because, most of the time, the people that they telling the lie to, they don't really like you either. So, that's just adding more to the, what I'm saying? They loving what they're hearing. But again, they're lying on you. They're making up stuff that you did or said that you didn't do. And so, of course, you're not there to defend yourself. And so that makes it even better for them, because, instead of that person coming to you, or those people coming to you, hey, did you do such and such? They don't want to do that, because you know what? They want to believe a lie. That's what's going on in the world today. People rather believe lies than the truth. Nobody want to hear the truth. Because see, the truth gonna open up other stuff. So you rather hear the lie so you can just roll with that and keep it going like that, well, and sometimes we know it's not the truth, but yet and still we still listen. We still sit and listen to it. But again, I've had this happen so many times to me. People can take something that you say totally out of context, and like I said, it keeps going. And since my late husband has passed away, I've been called all type of names. Crazy. It's something wrong with her, Said I was on drugs. I ain't never did drugs a day in my life. But it's okay. It's okay, because I no longer can even get upset about that. I feel sorry for people like that. I pray for them. I add them to my prayer list, and I say, Lord, just help them. Because it's something deeper going on more than them talking about me and lying on me. It's something that they got issues going on with themselves, And, there was a time, I'm 51 years old now, but there was a time I had a get back spirit. If you talking about me, I'm going to say something even worse about you. But I'm no longer like that, because Jesus has saved my soul. He's helped me. I feel like I'm so much better than what I was 15, 20, 30 years ago. So I feel better. I'm better. I'm much better than what I used to be. And I wasn't a nasty person, but I would make sure you knew that what you did to me, it just couldn't fly. I had to get back to you. I had to get back at you. But I'm no longer, I'm walking in forgiving somebody, and even though, they feel like they can do that to us, and, if that's been done to you, just forgive them. When you forgive them, that takes the chain off of you, the chains around your heart, and just keep going, And I've even went as far as someone outright telling me, in the family, they wish my late husband had never married me. How mean is that? And I'm like, well, what did I do to that person for them to say that? And they just sort of said, I wish he would have married somebody else. And so I could have held a grudge. I could have been so mad at that person. And I told my late husband about it. And he's like, they said that? I was like, yeah, they did. And, that's all because he was a peacemaker. So he didn't, but I was like, that was back in the time that I was not really walking with the Lord like I'm walking with him now. And so that upset me. It upset me, y'all, because I'm like, how dare them say that to me? Here I am loving on them, and it was a female, and I'm hugging them and praying for them, and they saying something that mean to me. But that's how people are, y'all, and I'm developing tough skin every day. I'm just learning to just, not even take stuff personal like I used to. And words do hurt. I'm not, taken away from that. But at the same time, just pray for people. Pray for them. Ask God to help them. Because like I said, it's something way deeper than them talking about you. It's something way deeper than them scandalizing your name. They got other issues going on. Just pray for them. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. But the other thing I wanted to talk about is abuse. So there's mental abuse and there's physical abuse. Now, neither one is better than the other, but people will constantly abuse you and say that they love you every day. Now, I've never had the physical abuse, but I was dating a guy one time, and I feel like it was getting ready to go into that because he was controlling. This was back way before I met my late husband, but he was controlling, and he wanted to know everywhere I was going, this, that, and the other. So I feel like, that was coming. That was going to be next. But I got out of that relationship. But it was mental as well, because he would say different little derogatory remarks to me, here and now, whenever, and, and then just kind of laugh it off. So, that's mental abuse. Like I said, neither is better than the other. But at the same time, we got to be mindful. And physical abuse, of course, we all know is hitting, slapping, pushing, or tying somebody up. That's all physical. But mental is name calling, yelling, demeaning remarks, deliberately causing mental or emotional harm through words or behavior. And so that's the part that I've grown up under. People saying, I wasn't going to amount to anything. Oh, she didn't have her her real daddy. You know, they say, I'm from the South, so they say her real daddy ain't never been in her life. So she ain't gonna be nothing. You know, y'all pray for her because she may be a lost cause. But I'm totally the opposite. God been taking care of me ever since my mom brought, ever since I was in her womb. He been taking care of me, and he's still taking care of me. You know, yes, I've had some ups and downs, but God has always been there, and I thank him for his being there in every area of my life. So that was totally false. But I grew up under controlling words, you know. Again, you know, people speaking death over your life. You know, you're not gonna, you just ain't gonna do nothing. You know, you ain't gonna do nothing with your life. And a lot of times people don't say what they really want to say, but they'll say a lighter version of it. So, you know, you'll get the gist of it, but they don't want to say what they really want to say. You know, like, yeah, she gonna end up on the street, or yeah, she gonna end up on drugs or something. But I think that's so mean, you know, to even say that about anybody, because how dare you say anything about somebody that's gonna cause them harm or cause them, you know, anything bad for their life? Why would you want that? You know, you shouldn't. None of us should want that for nobody, you know. But it's people like that, you know. And some people, they don't even say it out loud. They're thinking it, you know. And God knows your thoughts. So please always remember that, you know. You're not getting away when you're wishing bad and harm on people in your mind. Oh, I wish they would just get sick and die. God see it. He hear everything you're thinking. He hear everything you're thinking. He know every thought. So please remember that. And my last point is who has stolen from you. Now I want to share this because I want to ask this question. Do you got a thief around you? And what I mean by that is that somebody around you that has at any time stolen anything from you. And I'm gonna share this what happened to me. And excuse me. So this was back when the earlier part of me and my late husband, we were married 21 years. So this was like early in our marriage. And so we were moving a lot because, you know, we were having children, of course, but we were, you know, it was a time we were I ain't gonna say sort of, we were struggling. So we was having to downsize. And so, you know how you just throw away stuff and, you know, you're trying to get rid of stuff because you ain't got enough room for stuff. So I believe, well, I don't believe it happened. I threw away a book of checks, bank checks. And so, you know, a little time went on by. And then next thing I know, I got an alert from the bank. And it was, somebody was using that checkbook. Now, the checks that I had thrown away, I should have shredded them. But again, we were just trying to, you know, we were just moving. We were trying to downsize, trying to get rid of stuff. And so I just threw it in the dumpster. I remember I threw that whole thing in the dumpster. And so, but what it was, the checks that I had thrown in the dumpster it had my name, my maiden name misspelled. So I was like, well, they ain't gonna get a bit. And then it was an incorrect address on there as well. So it was just a book of checks, a box of checks that I couldn't use anyway. So I didn't think anything of it. Well, I was wrong. So anyway, someone got a hold to that checkbook and they were just having a good old check writing party. And I don't know if y'all familiar with this restaurant, but it's in the South. It's called Piccadilly. And it's sort of like a buffet type style restaurant. I don't even know if they still exist. But anyway, it was existing, of course. And then also they were writing checks there, going to lunch and having a good old lunch off of at my expense. And then also they were going to an auto parts store and getting parts. They were buying car parts or something I think it was AutoZone or something. And I was like, wow, who is this? Who's doing this? And so, you know, it'll be like maybe Monday they'll write a check or 2-3 checks and then they'll stop. And then these checks weren't cheap either. They were $60, $70. And then it'll go, you know, maybe a week or two will go back. They'll write us some more. And I'm like, who is doing this, you know? And so, like I said, at the time, we had a lot going on. So I wasn't really focusing too much on it. But my late husband said something. And I was like, wow, why would you say that? Because he said to me, he said, I think who's stealing from you, I think it's somebody you know. And I said, what do you mean, family? And he said, yep. He said, I think it's somebody in your family. And I said, oh, I don't. And I said, well, to be honest, I got some people in my family that steal. I do. You know, I'm just going to be honest. And so, I had some cousins at the time. And so he was like, well, it's somebody I feel, that's what he said. He said, I feel like it's somebody that's close to you that's doing that. And so I was like, wow. But anyway, I never found out who it was. I did not. And, but I know the Lord know exactly who it was. But, I have been in so many different situations, y'all, where I've had to I'm going to be honest anyway. I'm not going to try to take nothing from nobody. I'm not going to steal nothing from nobody. I'm not going to do anything like that, of the sort. But, anytime people are given an opportunity to do something, some people, that's just how they built. They're going to steal from you. They're going to hurt you. They're going to do whatever. But again, we got to forgive those people. I didn't think no more about that. But, when he said that, now that I think about it now, I'm like, yeah, because a couple of names come to mind now. Of course, that's been years ago. But, I'm like, wow, if this was indeed a family member, that's bad. That's real bad. But like I said, I never found out who it was. The bank never charged me or anything, because what they was writing the checks on that account, that didn't even exist. It was just, like I said, the checks that they were writing off of. And then I was a little upset with the restaurant and the auto parts store, because I'm like, I thought you had to show ID, and apparently they did not, because, they were just having a good old time writing checks. But again, we got to forgive people, y'all. We have to forgive them. We have to forgive them. I can't say that enough. Whatever they've done to you, do not, allow that to have you in such a place where you are so upset and you're so mad. And all that does is a lot of times that unforgiveness will fester in you, and it'll make you sick, to cause you to be bitter towards other people, And when me and my late husband met, he had been wronged by the young lady he was dating way before we met. She decided she didn't want to be with him anymore. She said, get out, and he said, well, they had an apartment, a real nice apartment together. And she just decided she didn't want to be with him anymore. And it hurt him so bad, he ended up moving back home with his parents and stuff. And that's how we eventually later met. But, he told me, he said, I really loved her, and he said, she just woke up one day and said she didn't want to be with him anymore. But that's what I'm saying, y'all, that could have destroyed him. That could have just made him, I could have never met him because he was so destroyed by that. But he chose to forgive her. He chose to forgive her, and he chose to keep moving forward. And like I said, the things that I have had happened to me in my life, by my biological father not being in my life, I could have had a thing against men, but I didn't, but I'm just saying, this is how things happen. The enemy, Satan, will use those things that come into or that are a part of us or have occurred, happen in our life. He will try to use that, so we won't get to do things, or use that. So, okay, well, I'm not going to do this because I've been hurt. I've heard people say that, they won't do things because, and it's just harboring unforgiveness. They say, well, I can't forgive them, for what they did. They molested me. They cheated on me. Whatever somebody's done, please let it go. Please let it go, because that's why it's so important to know Jesus, because when you surrender it all to Jesus, lay it at his feet, he'll take care of the situation. But you can't take care of it. You can't hold on to it, because what you gonna do? It's just gonna make you even more upset. It's gonna make you even more upset. And all the stuff that has happened to me in my life, I can be very upset with a lot of people, but I choose not to. Because like when that family member said that to me, they wish that my late husband had never married me. Just said it, just thought it was so funny. And y'all, that hurt me to the core, because I said, wow, here I am thinking I'm something special in the family, all the get-togethers and the good eating and all this and that. And somebody saying they wish I was not even in the family. But I could have, like I said, I could have been real mad. I really could have. But you know what I chose to do? I chose to love. I chose to forgive her. And I still was hugging on her whenever we get together at the family get-togethers. Still, she was, twitching and itching. I could tell she didn't like me. And I don't know why she didn't like me. I didn't have a problem with her. But I'm just saying, and now since he's dead, oh, it's really outright. It's very evident. I really don't like you. And I don't have to pretend anymore because he's dead. But it's okay. Like I said, I don't go to sleep mad at nobody. I don't go to sleep, with so much bitterness in my heart. I wish they would die. Or I wish they would, it's people doing it, y'all. That's called witchcraft. But it's people that hate you so bad that they don't want you to even be walking the earth. And that's an issue there. That's an issue there. But that's what I'm saying. We got to let go of that stuff. We have to let go of it. We got to move forward because God has so many great things for us. But when we are mad, upset, bitter, whatever word you want to use, we're not moving. We're stagnant. We're just sitting still. And God don't want us to do that, And like I said, I've had to, when I worked at Blue Cross years ago in Tennessee, because that's where we moved from. But I had a lady and I had, it was bothering me so bad. And I asked her, I said, did I do something to you, to offend you? She was my team leader. And she said, because she started acting sort of weird towards me. And I was like, did I say something that she didn't like? Or, because then I was people pleasing. So I cared about what people think, but I don't care no more. But I'm just saying then, it bothered me because we worked sort of close together. And she said, no, you didn't do nothing. But y'all, that bothered me so bad. And then I forget what she said. She said some sort of remark after that. After I kept asking her, and that was the end of it. But I knew it was something, that she just didn't like about me. Same thing with the family member, she just didn't like me for whatever reason. And I didn't have a problem with her. And I was just trying to think, what did I do to her, And like I said, a lot of times people just mad at you for no reason. They just don't like how you look. They don't like how you talk, or you don't like how you walk. I don't know. It's crazy. But again, we can't let that stuff bother us like that. We gotta, like I said, when I lay my head to pillow every night, I can honestly say, I said, Lord, give me a clean heart and renew a steadfast spirit within me, because I don't have time for that. I think about that now. It's such a waste of time to be mad at people, to be, just have unforgiveness. Because I'm like, I want to go to heaven when I die. I don't want to go to hell, because it say it's hot and you're gonna burn forever. I don't want to go there. So whatever I need to do while I'm alive and while I got breath in my body, I want to do it. And if that means, I'm going to tell, and I want to share this too, because I feel like somebody needs to hear this. But God, when we moved here, because this was a faith move, but when we moved here, June of 2022, I couldn't sleep. I think it was that same year, because it wasn't 2023, but the Lord woke me up and he told me to call. He gave me each name, each family member, and he told me to call them and ask them to forgive me. And ask me to, he wanted me to ask for their forgiveness. And I couldn't understand why, because I was like, Lord, I didn't do anything to them. But what it was on their end, they didn't know what was going on, why we suddenly moved, even though I explained it to them. There was a God move. But he said, just call them up. And, he told me what to say to them. And I did it, y'all. I did it. God is my witness. I did it. So that's how serious this is. When he tells us to do something, we must do it. We got to do it no matter. And if you feel that burning in your spirit about, apologizing to somebody, do it. If you did somebody wrong, you cussed somebody out, you hurt their feelings, if you molested them years ago, call them up and say you sorry. So whatever it is, you're not to, and that's what the Lord is teaching me. You ain't never to, you can do it. And that as I was calling each family member, y'all, I was feeling better and better. And a lot of them was like, well, what did you do to me? And I said, I just want you to forgive me, because first, I believe what was going on, what the Lord was showing me was that how we left, maybe I presented my way in a certain way. So he said, just ask them to forgive you. And I did. And they forgave me. So for misunderstanding, whatever, whatever it was, I just did what God told me to do, and I felt so much better. But again, we know that we can trust God, but God is looking to see if he can trust us. And we asked him to bless us. We asked him to do things for us, to help us, to, we need a new job. We need a new car. We need a new house. We ask him for stuff constantly. And he said, but can you do the simple things? And we say, well, that's not simple. It really is. It really is. It's just a matter of putting your pride out of the way. And like I said, as I was calling those family members, I felt better, and which I didn't have no problem with calling them. But I was just like, I said, okay, I'm going to obey you, God. I'm going to do what you tell me to do. But, a lot, and I'm not sharing that in a boastful way. I'm sharing it to give God the honor, the glory, and the praise, because there was a time I'd be like, you want me to do what? I'm just going to be honest. It's honest still. I don't have a reason to lie. So, but we got to come to, come to the end of ourselves and say, Jesus, whatever you want me to do, I do it. And it's a lot of people, y'all. It's a lot of people. I have watched court shows. I have watched crime shows that people have died. They've lived their life. They've died. And they're in the graveyard now. And nobody ever told them, I'm sorry. Nobody ever said, will you forget? Nobody apologized. It's people, years have gone by. People have not spoken. It's unforgiveness being harbored, something that they thought somebody said, or she stole from me, or he stole from me, and they take it to the grave. Nobody is the bigger person. You got to be the bigger person. Nobody's the bigger person to say, I'm sorry. Did I do something wrong? And then I had another situation where I was working at another job, the job I had to resign for before we moved here. And I asked the lady, it bothered me. See, stuff like that bothers me. I can't sleep when I think I've done something wrong. And so, but then some people sleep even better. But I couldn't sleep that night. So I went back to work the next day, and I asked the lady, I said, just like I did the other lady at Blue Cross, I said, I'm sorry, was I talking in a mean way to you? Because she was training me. And she said, what are you talking about? And I said, yesterday when you was training me, I said, I feel like I came across, my tone was too strong or something, or rude or something. She said, and she was sitting there, y'all, like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, if I hurt your feelings or anything, I said, I'm sorry. That's what I told her. I did. But she said, you didn't do anything. She said, I don't even remember what but y'all, that bothered me so bad. I could not sleep that night, because I thought that I had hurt her feelings. Because she was just super nice. She was super nice. She helped everybody in the office. But for some reason, I just thought that I remember that particular time when she was training me. And I remember, I was talking over her. I remember that part. But then I felt like I was, my tone was a little, I guess, rude or something. But she said, she's like, I don't remember what you did. And then she just kept on typing, doing her work. So I was like, okay. So I felt a little weird, but I was just trying to clear the air, because I'm like, I had not too long ago started the job. It was a new job then. And I was just trying to do what was right. But, that made me feel even better that I did not do anything to her. But I was like, okay, Lord, I tried to apologize, but, I guess she said I didn't do anything. So that made me feel good. But, but like I said, we gotta, I rather, go to somebody and really not have to go to them versus don't want to go to them. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, y'all, life is short. But take it from me, life is short. I never thought that my late husband passed away, during 2021. We was all, seemed like we was doing pretty good. Everybody was eating, everybody was working, everybody was just, it seemed like everything was just going super good. And then the bottom fell out. But God said, I know what I'm doing. He's still in control. He's still good. He's still good. But the whole point of it all is, like I said, and I was able to tell him that I loved him before he passed away, right there in the house in Tennessee. So I'm thankful for that. But we got to quit going through life and thinking it's all about us, You know, it's so important, y'all. It's so important. If you got the time, you know, you have the time. You know who it is that you need to apologize to. You know who it is. And they know where you at. They know if they need to apologize to you. You know, just don't let it be too late. You know, because I've been to quite a few funerals, you know, when we were in Tennessee, because my late husband's father is a minister, pastor. And so, you know, it was always, we were going to different funerals there at the church, and, you know, everybody's weeping and wailing over the coffin, over the casket, but it's too late. The person can't hear you. You know, you know, a lot of that is not just, it's just not missing them. It's you know, they were harboring, you know, there was some discord there, you know, and some people knew it, some people didn't know it, but, you know, it's too late. They're dead, you know? So don't let it be like that. Don't let it get to be that way. You know, go tell them. And then if it's hard for you to apologize and forgive them, take some baby steps. You know, let's go to lunch. Somebody has to be the bigger person. You know, everybody can't be mad. Somebody can't be mad, you know? And that's what I'm learning. I'm learning to, you know, I consider myself, you know, pretty nice. I feel like I've always been nice all my life. But I've been a little sassy, you know. I've been a little, like I said, I used to have a get back spirit. You know, if somebody did something to me, I got to get them back. I got to get them back. You know, it may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but I'm going to get you back for what you did. You know, I saw what you did. But now, I don't even care. And even got 4 children. So 2 boys, 2 men, and 2 young men and 2 young women. And so my youngest son, he always tell me, he said, Mama, I feel like you're just too nice sometimes. I said, but that stuff don't even matter like it used to. Now, back in teenage years, 20s, and, you know, it mattered. But it just don't matter now. You know, like I said, I want to pray. I want to pray for them. I want to add them to my prayer list now. And you may think that's like, what? Yeah, I want to add them to my prayer list now, because I don't have time to be mad at you. What you mad at me about, is it giving any glory to God? No, it's not. So let's try to make it right. And, you know, people ain't speaking to you for whatever reason. Pray for them. Pray for them. But don't go around being mad, because that madness is going to develop into other stuff. So, you know, again, we got to do better, y'all. We have to do better. I'm talking about myself too. You know, I haven't always been where I'm at. I'm not where I need to be with Jesus, but thank God I ain't where I used to be. And that's some growth there. That's a lot of growth there. But I'm just thankful, y'all. I'm thankful for my journey. I'm thankful for everything. I'm thankful for y'all. And I pray that you all are blessed through this channel. You know, I share my testimonies on this channel. I share different things that I've had to go through, you know, since my late husband passed away. And, you know, it's just been a lot, but it's all been worth it. You know, I wouldn't take nothing for my journey, because in this journey, he's teaching me how to be a better woman. And I feel like I'm much better than I was before. I'm so much better. So much better. And the best is still yet to come. It's still yet to come. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for joining this live. You all are such a blessing to me. I pray I'm a blessing to y'all. I always pray that you hear Jesus speaking through me and not just me. And I pray if you don't know Jesus for yourself, I pray you're going to get to know him before it's everlasting too late. Heaven is real, so is hell. So we don't want to go to hell. We want to go to heaven. So ask the Lord to come into your heart. He's waiting for you right now with extended arms. He loves you. He cares for you. It's the best relationship you'll ever have. It's the one with Jesus. So thank you all for listening. And I just pray you have a beautiful, blessed Sunday in the mighty name of Jesus. Bye-bye. Thank you all. Bye-bye.